3, and we're live. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever the case may be in this bright and wonderful world we all call home. This is your humble host, Mike Miller, and I am here. You know, guys, I'm a 26-year veteran of this industry, and once in a while, I like to find a good upcoming talent and introduce them to the world. So, without further ado, I'd like to show you this young upstart. His name is Art THIBERT, and he's an artist and inker. Art, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hey guys, Art THIBERT, a 30-plus year veteran in the comics industry. So I've been doing
did I get that wrong?
Like, a little longer than Mike, just a tad. And I'm primarily an inker, known as an inker, but I've penciled and written various projects in the past. And so Mike was gracious enough to invite me on his program so I could ink up a SheRa drawing of his and show you guys what maybe the combination, the team would look like, the dream team.
Oh, you've never inked me, huh? I've tried to get you on projects. I tried to get you on Injustice, but they're like, he's too expensive.
Yeah. That's a good thing, right? It's a good thing too.
I'm too rich to
get paid well.
It's all good. All right, let me. I'm gonna bring my iPad up so I can see if people have questions for us. I'm also going to be inking at the same time, so you guys, even though you can't see what I'm doing here because I have my phone set up here, recording. Dude, we've already recorded 10 minutes on this thing, and I haven't even started. Let me start over. Okay, let's stop. So what I'm going to be doing with mine is later on, I'm going to probably turn this either into a standalone video or a time-elapse video so that people can see me inking as well. But I'm not as fancy as Dan Fraga, so I don't understand how to figure out all this here stuff about the picture and whatnot. But someday, I'll figure it out. And
the technology of the whole thing.
Art's just going to go ahead and get to work. And you guys, so when Art's talking, you'll be able to see him inking.
Well, let me talk. Okay, is this upside down right now?
It is upside down.
Okay, let me fix that because you guys are going to get some crazy vertigo. Let me rotate. I don't want anybody getting sick.
But that's fun.
No, it's not. That is not fun. Okay, I'm shifting around my iPad. This is my first time, so everybody be gentle. All right, is this better?
Yes.
This better? Okay.
It's a little turned.
Little turn?
Hold on.
All right, put that there. And it sounds like someone's trying to break into my room.
I don't know why it's on. So it has to be. Oh, it has to be over here.
What's up, Andro Taz1? So, Art, what size brush do you use?
I use a Winsor Newton Series 7 watercolor brush.
What size?
I use number 2.
A 2?
Yeah. Why do you use something thicker, something bigger?
Yeah, you know, I always used a 3 on Winsor Newton. You know how Winsor Newton and Raphael are different sizes?
Yeah.
But I would use a 3 on Winsor Newton, and actually I haven't used Winsor Newton for years because their quality control has gone to crap. So I've been buying Raphael's, and Steve Rude came up to me at Phoenix this year, and he's watching me, and he's like, "Why do you use such a small brush?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, he said it was like some sort of conspiracy that they convinced everyone they should use smaller brushes. I don't know why, but I had some larger brushes that I accidentally ordered, and they'd been here for years. And so, I mean, I don't know, can you see? Look at the size of the brush on that. You see it? Oh, you can't see, huh?
Yeah, I can't see anything. So what size is that?
So,
a 3?
This is a 4. And yeah, he's like.
Yeah, but what are you filling blacks with it, or are you actually?
No. I'm getting my lines. I'm getting the same tip I get with a 3, which is the same tip you get with a 2, but you hold a lot more paint. And I get it from what he said. The the brush holds out longer. So you'll learn something new after a quarter century, I guess.
Well, I like a brush that'll hold a lot of ink, but I still need a decent tip. So
yeah,
the 2s are always good for me because it holds a good amount of ink, but it also keeps a good tip. The 3s can as well, but for really detailed work, I find it gets a little cumbersome, a little messy. I can't get a good clean line, like a small clean line out of it. Is this coming through, Mike?
Yeah, yeah, you're not center screen, but you can see what you're doing.
Okay, we should have a race, see who wins.
Yours is a little easier.
You're already copping out, man. You're supposed to accept the challenge.
Dusty Sidekick says he's used a lot of Raphael 8408s. I'm using an 8404.
I use them when I can't find the Winsor Newton, so I have a couple Raphael.
Dude, I remember when I started in this business, Winsor Newtons were so reliable. Like every single one practically you bought could give you just that freaking awesome tip. And then yeah, they just I guess what happened was their master brush maker or whatever either died or retired, and then after that it became kind of hit and miss. And I'm like, dude, I'm not paying $30 for a hit and miss.
Right.
So the Raphael seem a lot more consistent. We're just talking about
the Winsor Newtons are getting harder to find too. So a lot of these stores don't carry them.
The Kolinsky Sable, they banned using like the Sable. I don't know, like they made it an endangered species or some crap like that. So I don't know.
That well, either they're endangered or they're not.
Hey man, my artwork is endangered.
I hear you. If everybody at home watching this could see how I'm inking, I have this iPad right in front of my face. So I'm kind of looking around this thing to see your.
Yeah, we're all still we're still in learning mode. I'm still in learning mode. For those who I mean, you can't see. Actually, you can't see. All right, I'm going to turn my computer so you can see my awesome layout. Oh, great! I'm getting a call too. Shoot. All right, I'm going to mute this.
Hold it. You still there, Mike? Mike's gone bye-bye. So should I talk?
No, Art, I'm muting myself because I got a phone call.
It's okay.
Right.
So I guess I'll keep talking and I'll take the show so Mike can talk on the phone. So we're doing her headdress right now, SheRa's headdress. The interesting story behind this is this was Mike's redesign from the animated SheRa design that apparently Mike had some issues with. So I thought it was so good, I volunteered to ink it up live. on his show. And Mike's always been a really good friend to me over the years, and thought I'd give him a little entertainment on his program. I hope this is entertaining. I hope you can see this. Where are we?
I'm back. Oh, so what I was saying when my phone magically rang, can you hear me? Is my mic on? So I had a gooseneck clamp for my phone, but I have 5 kids, so that obviously didn't survive that long. So what I did was I took one of my gooseneck lamps and I scotch taped my phone to it so that I could record what I'm doing. But Art has a legit clamp for his iPad, so that's where we're at. We're all learning.
I'm not sure how well it's working though. I'm trying to figure out what it's filming and what it's not here.
You're all the way on the right-hand side, but I can still see what you're doing.
Okay. So if I go, there's a delay. So if I go this way, it's better.
Can't tell if there's a delay.
So Mike, I'm trying to frame this in. I'm going to keep talking. So.
Okay. That's pretty good.
We have a little bit of delay. So that's good right there?
Yeah, you're just a little bit to the right, but it still looks good. Gosh, is this pen even working?
Which way do I go?
I think towards this way.
This towards you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Okay, let's cut back onto me and see how this is looking. All right.
Hello to everyone who's in the chat. I'm gonna hold up my little bumper room thing. I see Lego Ghost. I see Androtaz. I see Bootsy. I see Juan. I see Trusty Sidekick. I'm not gonna keep doing that. All right. Dang it! I think my quill is quitting. I need to get some more ink. Well,
you can't see it for.
I'm using some Speedball Super Black to pump up my ink. I haven't inked in so long. I think my ink's getting a little coagulated.
Well, I don't know what the temperature's like where you're at, but it's been really hot here. And so the heat really messes with your ink. It thickens it up and makes it kind of hard to flow or harder to flow.
Yeah. What ink do you use?
I just use Pelican straight out of the bottle. The reason the reason I like it is because just straight out of the bottle, it always flows really well. So I don't have to mix it with anything.
Yeah, I used to mix like 3 different inks together.
Yeah, me too.
But now I primarily will either use Winsor Newton waterproof India or PH Martin's. You know, the Martin's is it's a matte finish ink and it kind of looks cool. But when they start to thicken up a little bit, I just use some Speedball to, you know, rather than adding water to it to try to get it back to consistency.
Yeah, water's not a good thing.
Yeah.
Always just add.
So I'll actually. Yeah, but I don't want to add, like the other inks are the perfect consistency, right? So when you're adding it, it's still a little bit thicker than perfect.
Yeah.
So if you add a thinner ink, then you can get it back to a better flow. In my experience, although you do have 5 years on me, so.
Yeah. So when I speak, it means more. It holds more weight. It holds more ink.
That's right.
A lot more ink.
So,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna have you tell me and everyone what got you into the industry. Tell us your origin story.
I was going to community college because I was out on my own pretty early on. I could never afford a proper education, so I would take night classes, and I was more an illustration guy, so I was more I wanted to do like album covers and like movie posters and that type of thing when that was actually a viable art form. And but I always kind of did more fantasy illustrations. And a teacher that I had um, knew a guy that he was working for Continuity, Neil Adams' company, and so he was doing like Megalith or whatever, Mega Goliath or whatever that book was. And so he gave me his number, and I started hanging out with him, and he knew Jim Valentino. This is the comic book part of it. He knew Jim Valentino, and he introduced me to Jim, and Jim needed an inker / assistant. So I started working with Jim on Normal Man originally, and then, but not much of that, and then over to Myth Adventures for Apple. But I was doing illustration at the same time, so I was doing, I never got a novel cover, but I did do interiors for novels, and I did like, I guess, pinup calendars for different publishers and stuff like that, just illustrative things. And so the comic book thing started paying me more money, and just it was more steady as well. And like I said, I was more illustration and not that interested in comics, but it was paying the rent. So my focus became more on the comic aspect and less on the illustrative. So I always read comics as a kid, but when I got older, it was more like rock and roll and girls. So I didn't really, when I was a teen in high school and stuff, I didn't really read comic books. And then I started getting back into it with Jim and started kind of seeing it was pretty good. There was more adult stuff. I really was getting into like John Buscema and some of, I guess Pacific Comics existed at that time. They were kind of a precursor to Image. So I don't know if anybody remembers Pacific. Living in San Diego, you probably do, right, Mike?
I remember a little bit. I never picked up any of their stuff though.
Yeah, they were the original publishers for Rocketeer. So they did Rocketeer, and their claim to fame, like Pacific Comics, was that they had all the big names. So they had Neil Adams, they had Jack Kirby, they had Bernie Wrightson. They had all the big names. And I remember talking to Jim Lee about this. I was like, well, Pacific Comics did this before Image. And he goes, well, the difference between us, what we're doing in Image Comics, is that Pacific did it when all those guys weren't at the top of their game. You know, like Neil and Jack Kirby and stuff like that. Right. He said the difference is we're doing it at the top of our game. And so, because Pacific didn't last very long. So anyways, that was a little tangent. So yeah, just started assisting Jim, inking with Jim, and Jim would teach me. Jim was doing animation storyboards. A lot of East or a lot of West Coasters, old West Coasters would do comic books, but then when animation, because animation was always seasonal, they would go over and do animation during the animation season because it just paid so much more. And then they would come back to comics when it dried up. And so Jim was doing that as well, but we were doing Myth Adventures at the same time. And so just as most indie comics work, they would pay us our upfront money against like the royalties or whatever, but they never paid us our back end money. And so I had to make the rent. So I just figured that Marvel Comics was a safer bet because I figured they would pay their bills. So So stupid me. I'm probably boring everybody with the story, but stupid me.
Nope.
I went up and well, before that, before the stupid me part, I talked at a con to Jim Shooter, who was the editor in chief at Marvel, and he looked at my portfolio and he goes, "It's pretty good, but like it's not quite Marvel yet." He said, "If you came down to Marvel, you could come and we could work with you in the bullpen." Because they had the Ramita Rangers or Raiders at the time. So like Johnny Ramita Sr. would work with a bunch of young guys and they would do like art corrects and things like that, any kind of production stuff that had to be done on these comics. But it was a great way to learn while you were doing. And so I was like, sure, I'll do that. So this is where the stupid me comes in. I I never followed up with Jim Shooter in a phone call or or a letter or anything. I just saved up my money and got a ticket to New York City because all the publishing was in New York at the time. So I flew to New York City to meet with Jim Shooter. Like I said, I was kind of a dumb kid. And I just marched right up to Marvel Comics and said, "Hi, Archie Bear. I'm here to meet with Jim Shooter." And so the receptionist was like, "I don't see you on the list." And I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm here to see Jim. Jim invited me down to talk to him about a job." And then she goes, "Well, I'm sorry. I don't see you here." And so I must have just looked really, really sad and pathetic. And so she buzzed me up, and I went up there and found out where Jim's office was. And then I went in, not to the office, but he's got a secretary as well. So I went in there, and I'm talking to his secretary, and she's basically doing the same thing. Like, "Well, you're not on the schedule here. I don't have any, you know, like meetings or anything with Jim." And so once again, I must have just looked like the sad Californian, just like this, like, "Oh, come on, man, I came all the way from California." So she talked to Jim. Jim never came out, but he did say to her, "We have a job offer." And so when she came out, she had an offer. And then she says, "How would you feel about working in the bullpen?" And I was like, oh, or not, no, it wasn't the bullpen. I'm sorry, I misspoke. It was it wasn't a gopher. What was it? It was an intern. That's what it was. She goes, "You could work as an intern." And I'm like, "Oh, cool. How much do interns pay?" And she's like, "Interns don't pay anything. And you'll be handing out mail and stuff like that. But you'll be in Marvel so you can talk to the editors and whatever else." And I'm like, "Well, how am I going to live in New York City if it doesn't pay?" Like I was like going to move there and just live there and everything. And so then she said, "I'm sorry, that's all we have to offer you. I hope I'm still entertaining and no one's fallen asleep yet." But so then, I'm still pretty sad, pretty dejected there. And so a friend of mine, Craig Anderson, who was working as Ralph Macchio's assistant at the time, and also he was the guy I was staying with. And little trivia note: his dad is the Marmaduke guy, so his dad created the Marmaduke comic strip. And so he said, "You're at Marvel." He said, "Dust yourself off, have some faith in yourself, and just go talk to the different editors. They're all here, and see what they have to say." And so I was like, "Okay, sniff, sniff," And so I did. I went and talked to every editor there at Marvel, and you know what they did? You know what they did, Mike?
Nothing.
They did nothing. Yeah, I'm trying to incorporate you in the story because it's getting boring. Anyway, so then there was a little bit of a West Coast comics. There were some guys that worked here or that were trying to get going, and so in the early days, it was kind of like There was a guy named Art Nichols. I don't know. There was a guy named Art Adams. He never really went anywhere. And then there was Rob Liefeld. And then there was myself. And we all kind of hung out and did these creation comics. Those two were Northern California, but they still flew down here or came down here to do these cons and things. So we all got to know each other. And so when I was at Marvel, I hadn't seen Art Nichols or had heard anything about him, for a year or so. And so when I was in the office, he was there and he's like, hey, hey, Art, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to get something going with these guys. And so he's like, oh, well, I'm going to go. I got some pages because he had been working in the business now. So he had gotten a job. So he's like, I'm going to go over to DC Comics. You want to...
Right, hold on. I blanked out for a second. Who are you talking about?
This is Art Nichols. He was an inker. He inked Art Adams stuff early on. I don't think he ever penciled anything, so he was primarily an inker. And I don't think he's working today. I tried to track him down on the internet just to thank him for... I don't even know if he knows how much he did for me and my career. Because right after this little get-together, I never saw him again. It was just weird. So it's just weird how people come in your life and kind of can change it and don't, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like a one shot and you never get to thank them or never see them again. So he took me over. Yeah. We shared a cab over to DC, and I went in and I talked to it was Bob Greenberger, and so it was the polar opposite of Marvel. Greenberger was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And then he says to me, like, this is every, aspiring comic book artist's dream. He said, what do you want to do here at DC Comics? And I was like, what? Huh? So I tried to be humble. I was like, well, whatever you got. And all I keep thinking is like, Superman, Batman, But, yeah, so he just said, well, I got an opening on some Star Trek, because they used to do the Who's Who. DC had these great books that were like the DC Who's Who, and they had like the Star Trek Who's Who as well. And so he just says, how about we start you off with some like Who's Who pieces? So he gave those to me, and I went back to the apartment. I didn't have a drawing board or anything, so I'm kind of sitting on the floor using Craig's coffee table, and I was thankful for that. Also, I had no real tools that I brought with me, so I had to find like an art place that sold tools there in New York. And so I inked those up, and then it's the same day I'm inking, and Craig comes in after a hard day of work at Marvel and says, hey, man, how would you feel about inking at Marvel? And so I was like, oh, I would love to ink at Marvel. And so he said, well, you have a job on the, it was the glamorous Starline books. I don't know if anybody remembers those. Those were like the kiddie books. They had like Heathcliff and some of the animated licenses. And so the one they wanted me to do was the Inhumanoids, inking over Jose Delbo's pencils. And so the worst day of my life then became the best day of my life, which was I got pencil work at DC and I got ink work at Marvel on the same day. But if you would have talked to me, earlier that day, I was probably the saddest, most dejected human being on the face of the earth. So that's my claim to fame.
That's fantastic. Hey, guys, can you hear Art?
I hope.
Hold on a second. Guys in the stream, can you hear Art?
Can you hear it, Taylor?
Well, I don't understand.
I can hear it. Action Artist says I can hear it. All right, cool.
So they can?
Yeah, okay. If you guys got any questions for him, I do actually. When did you hook up with Jim Lee?
We I know you just did San Diego this past weekend. Um, I was there was a convention of San Diego, and we were in Artist Alley. I think he was doing Alpha Flight, and I was penciling and inking some Teen Titans spotlights, Aquaman, Aqualad, some stuff like that. And he was doing Alpha Flight, and I think Wills was there, and so was Scott Williams. And we were just kind of in the Artist Alley, and we just hung out. And I remember, like, Wills didn't really like to party, and I don't remember Scott too much, but I don't think he did either. But Jim liked to party, and back then, so did I. So we were, I don't know if I should tell this story. We were kind of sneaking beer in. So we were kind of having, tipping it back a little bit at the in the Artist Alley there. And so Jim was like, he was kind of one of the guys. He was drinking too. And so later that evening, we just kind of hung out in the evening, and we just got along really well. And so I guess I don't even know how much time had lapsed, but I was working on Adventures of Superman, doing finishes over Dan Jurgens, and I was really influenced by a lot of the same guys. Those, I guess at the time they were like the Homage guys, but this is pre-Homage even. They were just, some artists. And so I get a call from Bob Harris, and Bob's like, well, I started inking actually Art Adams first. So when I went back to Marvel, I was inking Art Adams. But Jim was like, hey, man, I want you to ink some of my Uncanny work. And so I was like, sure. So I think when Scott couldn't keep up with the schedule, I'm not sure if Scott was trying to like ink Wills and Scott or Jim at the time, but I just remember that they were kind of shorthanded. So I just kind of started hanging out with Jim and those guys, and they lived in San Diego. They were in your neck of the woods. So it wasn't that far for me to drive, and it wasn't that far. Well, actually, it was. I lived in the South Bay at the time, so I was more L.A. But we were young, stupid kids, and so we didn't mind driving and hanging out in each other's studios. So yeah. I'd go down south, and they would come up north, and we would just kind of hang out. And like I said, I think we just had a lot of similar interests, and I was doing similar stuff to what they were doing just because of the influences. Like the Barry Windsor Smith, I was really into the bloopy kind of look at the time. And so I really brought that into Jim's work early on and into even Art Adams. I had one of the ultimate compliments when I was inking over J. Scott Campbell. And he said, we were just talking, and he said, well, where do you think I got this style from? I'm like, well, I don't know where you got that style from. He goes, I got it. It's a derivative of what you did over, Art Adams. And, that bloop stuff, all that kind of thing. And I was really flattered because, Mike, we live and work in a vacuum. Like, we don't know what anybody really thinks. That's why these live streams and stuff are really awesome. Because we don't know what anybody thinks or what anybody's really looking at or any people are paying attention to your work. And so when you hear stuff like that, I don't know, for me anyway, it really makes my day because I have no idea what, anybody thinks of my work and what I'm doing. All I know is, I keep working, and that's good in itself. But when you have somebody
you're sign.
Yeah, the money's good and the work's good. But yeah, when you hear it from fellow artists, and you don't know what kind of influences you have on the industry or other people. And so, like I said, it was really cool. So that's kind of like how I met Jim and how that whole thing happened. And then we worked well with each other. I got along with Wilson and Scott. So we just kept kind of hanging out and working together. So that's kind of how.
Yeah, I thought you guys. I thought you were Wildstorm. Or I mean, I know you weren't there when I came down, and I was like kind of tangentially Wildstorm. But yeah, I thought you were there beforehand. I guess I thought this when I was more of a fan than a because you do precede me by a good half a decade.
Yeah, I'm the old
You're
man.
old.
Yeah. No, this predates Hami.
Yeah.
Like this is, I mean, we were just guys. We were just guys doing comics.
Yeah.
So the funny thing, I think.
Hey, trusty sidekick says, I always thought of art as an inker who made the pencilers look better. That is the inker's job.
Well, back
Art
then,
does his job.
Oh, thanks. Well, back then we were kind of more like finishers too, because there would be a lot of pencilers that didn't really finish work. So then you were kind of relied upon to kind of bring things together to make it look good. So I think a lot of the older guys had a lot of penciling skills too, because they kind of had to understand the basics of drawing. And also I always drew. I broke into business as a penciler and as an inker on the same day. Yeah. So I was always kind of both, and I always dabbled in both. The problem with penciling is I'm just not that fast at it. So
yeah, we have some similarities in our origin stories. So I don't want to get into mine, but
because it's checkered. You have a checkered past.
I have a checkered past.
No, I think
and it requires me bad mouthing some people, and I don't want to do that.
And blackmail. And serious.
No.
That's how you got me.
Let's just say that I should have been. That the class with Jeff Campbell and Alex Garner and those guys.
Yeah.
Scott, what's his name? Scott something. That year, that class of homage, that I should have been in that class.
Why weren't you?
And because the person who invited me reneged.
Oh, okay. Was that Scott Dunbier? Is that who you were trying to think of?
No, dude, this way before Scott joined Image,
okay.
or joined. No, it was a friend of yours who you banked.
Oh, from the con?
Okay, damn it! I didn't want to tell this story.
Is he now a producer?
No, he's a co-publisher of a comic book company we both work for.
Oh man, I'm blanking. You're gonna have to say it.
He's a good friend of yours. He's a good friend of yours. So
yeah.
It was freaking Jim, dude.
Williams? It wasn't Williams.
It was Jim.
Oh, okay. I thought you said his name was Scott.
No, I think you misheard something. I think I said I did not want to say it or something. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, he hired me at WonderCon. Promised to fly me down to, gosh darn it. Well, what the hell? Yeah, promised to fly me down. But these are like literally his words. You have the job. We're going to fly you down to La Jolla. We're going to set you up an apartment. We're going to throw some money in your bank account, and we're going to put you to work. And then he reneged on.
So it didn't work out that way for you?
No, it did not.
What did you do, Mike? What did you do?
I sent in a piece that didn't look like Jim drew it.
Ah, I see.
At least that is what I was told by, gosh, who was it? Was it Eddie Choi? I don't want to throw anybody on the bus. It was somebody who knew the situation said that was why he pulled out of his offer. And so, but yeah, I would have been in that class with Alex and those guys and everybody, and that would have been neat. But you know what? I'm happy with where my career went. And I ended up moving down to San Diego the next year anyways, and working with those guys, but I was never like in studio. And later on I was like, hey, you know, I was talking to Jim because I was working there so much. But I was like, hey, do you want me to like come in and work like legitimately at the studio? And he's like, yeah, but you'll have to work in the intern pit. And I'm like, I was kind of arrogant at the time, and I was like, dude, I'm a freaking professional comic book artist. I'm not you know, you didn't find me in some talent contest. No, you know, no offense to the guys they found in talent contests, but you know, I was a pro. I had been working for him as a pro. I wasn't somebody they had to bring in to teach, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And so I politely declined. Although I probably should have, just for the fun of it.
Well, my
you know,
my homage studio, or Wildstorm, which it became, is I was asked to join Wildstorm or Homage, which would have been a natural fit for me, and and then I was asked Extreme Studios by Rob, and then Top Cow by Silvestri. And Mark and I were more, because we were South Bay guys. He was in Malibu, and I was in Hermosa. So we had hung out quite a bit.
I thought Mark and Jim were at Homage together.
This all predates all that stuff. This is like the early Image, just like when they were trying to figure out what was going on. This was before anything was even published. So everybody was...
So 92.
Yeah, they were trying to get their camps in order. They were trying to get their alliances and things like that. So what happened...
Coach each other's artists.
Yeah. What had happened in that time was that I had moved with all my Marvel money. I bought a house, but I'm more desert now. So I'm Corona. So I'm right on the outskirts of Orange County, the Anaheim Hills, Yorba Linda area. So I'm right there. And so my wife and I loved the house and fell in love with it. So Top Cow, which wasn't even Top Cow at the time, it was basically just, you know, Mark wanted me to ink Cyberforce. So I did that. You know, we moved out. So then it became harder and harder for like just the communication and hanging out. So I isolated myself from Mark. And so then I was working with as an assistant, I was working with Danny Mickey. So I found Danny and I was teaching him the ropes about inking. And so then he went over. He went over. Yeah, he had the hair. He went over to start working with Rob. And so I would hang out there, you know, just see what was going on. And so then Rob just asked me, he said, "You want to work here?" And so it was just closer to my house at the time. And so I ended up kind of just working there because of proximity. And so I didn't take Jim up on his offer, and I didn't take Silvestri up on his offer. So what was on the table at the time was for me to ink Cyberforce. What's that?
You must have felt like the belle of the ball.
Yeah, it was actually, it was pretty unnerving. Actually, I didn't feel that good about any of it. I was really a nervous wreck. So yeah, I was supposed to ink Cyberforce the first year, and I was supposed to ink Wills on Wetworks. And actually, the way it all played out, it worked out for the best because Cyberforce only got one issue out that year, and because of Wills's family, you know, situation, he didn't get out anything in that first year. So Wetworks didn't come out until I think year 2 or 3. So I probably wouldn't have had a lot of work to do that first year anyway. So yeah, staying at Rob, with Rob and Extreme was probably at the time the better thing. But this is where my story goes bad, like you, is when Jim sold the studio, sold Wildstorm to DC. I probably would have been in on that deal because Scott and Wills got cut in. And since I would have been like a founder, I probably would have got cut in as well. So should-haves, could-haves, right?
All right. Oh no, I think my camera might turn off.
And then I would have been working with Mike Miller.
Oh, if only. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna give up on trying to film my thing. I think my camera quit out. So true or false? Did you ghost X-Men for Jim?
Ghost X-Men for Jim? I did some pencil work, but not a lot. I did finishes, so I officially got, some of the issues I didn't get credit, but I did mostly finishes. So he was giving me pretty good breakdowns, like all the proportions and the storytelling was there. But sometimes he'd ask, like, could you add a little extra here, or could you change this or whatever? So that one shot of Psylocke where she's coming out of the water, I think it's like a full page spread. No, it's a panel, but it's big. I actually diminished her thighs, so I did some like leg work on there for Jim. But I didn't volunteer. He asked me, so just for the record, I'm not one of those pencilers that just starts changing things.
Right. I did that to Pat Lee.
Did you? Did you get his permission?
Oh yeah, I would. No, I just moved stuff to where it belonged on the body.
Yeah.
And it was funny because Danny saw me at San Diego the year I was doing that, and he's like, "Mike, you fix Pat." He had a really bad habit of making breasts start at the collarbone.
That was the look back then.
So, yeah. Hey, whatever.
That's how Jim drew him.
But I did that from the beginning. I did that on Tom Duranick stuff, way back on Protectors. They would hire me literally. I don't even know who the artist was. They had me do this issue of Airman, and they're like, "Can you fix this?" I'm like, "Sure." I'm like, "Dude, you could just hire me as a penciler."
Yeah.
Instead of, having me fix the pencilers you hire who you don't already like. So.
Well, that's how I always think about, like, have you ever seen like Kevin Nolan's before and after? It's like, just hire Kevin to pencil the book.
Yeah.
It ends up looking like, Kevin penciled it anyway.
Right. Yeah, I don't get it. Although I know that some people are like, some people are fast at certain things, some people are fast at other things. So you could get a penciler like, okay, I've had this conversation with Matt Broom, and he's like, he can do finishes like hella quick, right? But it takes him forever to do breakdowns. And I'm like, dude, I can do breakdowns on a page in like an hour. And I'm like, we should get together. I'll do all the breakdowns, you do all the finishes, and we'll do like 6 books a month.
What happened with that?
Oh no, it was a joke. I mean,
that would have been great.
Matt does. Yeah, I think Matt's finishes on my breakdowns would look freaking fantastic. I actually had J.J. Kirby do finishes on an issue of Mutant X I did once. It looked great. I mean, it's so weird seeing someone else, take your work in such a different direction stylistically.
Right.
But like you can see your underlying structure is still there. It was really cool.
Like what I'm doing
Your
with
draw cam
your
is
work right now. I'm changing everything. I'm changing everything, Mike.
Do it. Do it.
I'm not. I'm showing it respect.
You're free to do whatever you like, my friend.
I thought this was a good
So
take
when
for the character.
Oh, thank you. What did you think about the controversy behind it?
I thought you made some good points. I really did. I think that it's for little girls, so I'm not sure how much I should chime in because I don't think I'm the demographics for it.
Right.
What's the main controversy? Is it just the new costume, or that she's a young, like seemingly a younger girl, or what's the?
Oh, did you not see it?
Your
did you? No, their design.
Yeah, well, I just saw all the stuff that you posted. That's all I've seen.
Yeah, she's a guy. I mean, she's built like a guy. She has. I even showed my daughter, who's huge anime fan, and she looked at it, and I'm like, look at those proportions and the features. I'm all, is that a guy or a girl? She's like, that's a guy. I mean, it's a guy with.
Okay, I get it now. So you
right?
You feminized her then.
Yeah, I made her back into a girl. That was the name of the video, and actually, that thing got a lot of hits. That got a lot of views. But
dude, I just bop in and out. I bop in and out when I'm working.
Yeah, right. You listen to me religiously.
I do, but I'm bopping in and out. Yeah, I would never miss an episode. It's like watching.
Do you watch the Aloha Hour?
Do I watch what?
The Aloha Hour that I do with Edwin Boyette.
You know what? Edwin's got to speak up. I find him riveting, but man, he's harder than hell to hear.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
He's very
yes. Well, you have the headset on, so you can hear him.
Let's see if anybody has anything interesting to say. Mike, it seems like the industry is full of fragile egos. Is that something that did we portray that in what we're
I hope he's not talking about me, because if he is, he's absolutely right. I cry on a daily basis. If this doesn't come out, come out and you don't like it, Mike, I'll start crying here live.
Art keeps a box of Kleenex right next to his desk, and it is only for crying.
That's absolutely true.
It's not for anything else you filthy-minded people would think.
Whoa! You had to take it there, didn't you?
I didn't, though. I'm just warning them not to take it there.
Oh, okay.
See how that works?
No, I don't. I still think you're stretching the truth a bit.
How dare you, sir? How dare you?
How dare you on my own show? I just called the host out.
Treat me with respect. I demand it.
I just called the host out on his own show. Did you see that? I'm a badass.
Boy, we got a lot of chats, but I've been so busy drawing and riveted by your story, Art, that I haven't looked through it. So, yeah, let me skim through. Man, I need my glasses. I don't know what my kid did with my glasses. I can't see. Let's see. I heard from an animator, Steve Bennett, that you could paint fine lines with a big paintbrush if you have the right brush control. I am nowhere near that good. Apparently, Art's not that good either.
I hate you.
Teeny tiny brush.
Do you see the detail I do? I mean, If I was doing like some sloppy watercolor and I was working huge, hell yeah, I could do that. This stuff is really in depth. It's a lot of detail.
Okay.
How
Hey, I'm
dare
not the
you?
one that. Oh.
How dare you? You're the one who brought me in there. You're the one who threw me under the bus.
Well, there's plenty of room under that bus. Let's see who else we can throw under there. Let's see. Everyone's saying hello. Pelican Ink is the best. How was your SDPC? How was your San Diego, Art? I know you were only there for one day.
It was great.
What did you experience?
I took a couple meetings. They went really well. Thank you very much. And met a lot of up with a lot of friends that I haven't seen in years, you included. And yeah,
every year.
Got to see a lot of. You know what my favorite place is just where they have the artwork. Like those guys are selling like the older artwork, like from the 40s, 50s.
Oh. And
they're just huge.
Yeah.
I love looking at that stuff. So I can spend hours in there, and actually I did. So
dude,
yeah,
that guy's literally like 10 seconds away from my booth.
Oh, so you can just kind of hang out there on your break if you got one.
I could if I had breaks. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I glanced at it as I ran past to the bathroom every time.
Yeah, I love that stuff. As you ran to the bathroom, literally running.
Pixel Trader says, I've got Art's black and white sitting in a long box behind me.
Hell yeah.
So what's going on with black and white?
My partner here, I'm gonna introduce her. Taylor.
Hi.
We have a studio here, so she's working away at her desk, and we've been busy. We've been busy revamping it for Indiegogo. So there's a Facebook site, Black and White Facebook, and there's a newsletter. So if you go to Art by THIBERT, you can sign up for the newsletter, and you can get all the updates on what we're doing and see the art that we're coming up with. And so yeah.
I can't see you, Ink. You have to move to the left.
To the left. Is this good? Can you hear me now?
Up.
Over more?
Up 3 inches.
Are we good?
Up 1 inch.
1 inch? Okay.
Now her face is centered now.
Okay. Up more?
So everybody, that's obviously, if in case you don't understand, that's Art inking my breakdowns of SheRa. SheRa! So it's not me inking. I think somebody in the chat thought it was.
Yeah, I'll properly introduce everybody after I'm done. I'll turn the camera on my mug. I'm not that experienced with multi-cameras yet.
I did put Art's YouTube channel in the description, so if you guys all want to bounce down there and go hit a subscribe, he is going to start producing more videos for our edification and entertainment purposes.
Yes.
So please do. Please do.
And thank you, Mike, for the invite.
Yeah, you know, what'd be cool is to get like an old image freaking party in here. Get like Andy Park, get Dan. Gosh, who else would like to come in and just shoot crap on YouTube for a while?
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Todd, you think Todd would?
Todd Knock?
You think Todd would? Yeah, he seems kind of private though. I mean, you obviously know him better than I do, right?
Not much, because he's very private.
He's a good guy though. Man, his YouTube channel has 24,000 followers or subscribers.
Yeah, he's drawn on there constantly.
Great. Yeah, I should do that. Oh shoot! You heard it here first, folks. I made a mistake. Dang it. But you can't see it, so you won't know. So I shouldn't have mentioned it. Darn it! Ah, second mistake.
Too darn honest.
Wait, let me see your mistakes.
I haven't made one yet. It might be going on this show if this doesn't turn out well.
Okay, let me see. Awesome, man. We're bringing that title back this year. Oh, that's your assistant, isn't it? Tag.
I don't know. Yes.
Yes.
She's tagging it.
Well, it's a little obvious. She said we.
Yeah. She said we. It's out of the bag now.
Yeah, guys, Tag in the chat is Art's assistant. So if you have any questions for her, you can hit those up too.
She's like, I'm nervous. Well, we're hoping if we can get the numbers up high enough that we'll start doing like this type of stuff between her and I. Because I don't know how you guys find the time to get your work done and live chat as much as you do.
Oh, I'm not getting my work done.
Oh, okay. Well, somehow
I'm out of work right now.
That you guys were like multitasking and making this all look easy.
You know, Ethan was doing it somehow or another before he got, you know, before he left DC. He was still doing Green Lantern, and he was building up his YouTube channel at the same time. I don't know how much he was doing it, but you know, maybe I don't know. I can't answer that. But I know that since doing this and making the Indiegogo part of the whole thing, it's like, you know, this is your job. You're building up your fan base, getting people to go to your Indiegogo. It's like I look at this as work I'm doing that I will be paid for in, you know, 2.5 weeks when my Indiegogo ends. And then when that work gets paid for, I can focus more on creating the book. And then, you know, I can just, you know, I've always, since I was, you know, a kid, I would just get on the phone and shoot crap with people while I was drawing. And so if I can do that and build an audience at the same time, then why not? I mean, it's just like you and I are on the phone, except for you've got a big old iPad in the face, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the way I'm trying to look at it, the same way that if I can make this a little bit more, I guess, comfortable to work, because right now it's kind of stilted the way I'm working now, but I'll get those things worked out later. But yeah, to where I can do my DC work. By the way, I'm doing The Adventures of Super Sons right now with Carlo Barbieri and Pete Tomasi writing.
Oh, my.
Yeah, it's a great book. We finished up our run of the regular ongoing series, so that's going to be the new series we're going to launch. But yeah, so I can do that while, you know, chatting to the fine people out there in the internet. Basically, I want to become Mike Miller. I want to be you.
You want to be me or beat me?
I want to. Well, sometimes I want to beat you, but I just kind of want to be you. For now, I just want to be you.
Dude, I don't even remember when we met. When was that?
Oh my God.
I just feel like I've known you my entire career, but I'm pretty sure that's not the case.
Well, I know that we hung out probably the most when you had your company Alias, and you had those.
Okay.
But I know we knew each other prior, but I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember how or any of that stuff.
Weird, huh?
It is weird.
Very strange. Someone has removed it from our memory banks. It's a conspiracy.
Well, I think it's funny that you don't remember and I don't remember. So maybe we never met originally. Maybe this is the first time we've ever met.
Oh, hi. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Mike. It's Art. Nice to meet you. Love your work.
Oh, thanks.
It's
You too.
It's fantastic. Thank you.
Let's see. Who were yours and Art's inspirations when you were kids? I'll go first there. My biggest inspirations were John Byrne and Paul Smith. As a kid, I drew from their stuff a lot. I mean, I loved guys like George Perez and Simonson and Sienkiewicz and stuff, but as far as to draw like people and like copying their stuff and all that, it was John Byrne and Paul Smith. Those were my go-tos.
Yeah, I'm older than you, so I was Neil Adams, and I loved how Neil and Dick Giordano worked together. So that was always the team supreme for me.
Mm.
So that was a big influence. I liked all the Marvel guys. I liked Ditko in the early days. I liked John Buscema a lot. And then when who was it? George Perez came on the scene. That was pretty cool for me. So I think that was it.
Perez was pretty rad. And have you ever seen him working at a con? He's like the hardest freaking working dude. He's just got his head down the whole time drawing.
Yeah, I've never actually watched him work before. I got to ink him some years ago.
Yeah, nice. George Perez and his Hawaiian shirts.
Yep.
So you got any good stories from Extreme that you can share without hurting anyone's feelings?
That's going to be tough.
Tell us about Dan Panosian.
Dan's a good guy. That's all I can say. No, in the early days, we were fairly inseparable.
Yeah?
Yeah. The X-Men days, then.
Yeah, he's a good guy. We don't disagree on pretty much everything, but I really like Dan.
Yeah.
We disagree so much, I had to, and I never unfriend anybody, hardly ever, but I had to unfriend him on Facebook because it was like everything he would disagree with me on. It's like, dude, can you just comment on something in a positive light once in a while? And so
that doesn't sound like Dan.
Make me laugh. I'm gonna mess up in my inks.
Now I know you're weak.
Man, don't you hate it when when the freaking paper is like absorbing the ink and it's like you don't notice it until
That's too late.
My mom's. Yeah, it's like you're halfway through it and it starts. You hit a spot where the ink is just bleeding out, and you're like, no.
I try to never make mistakes.
Well, yeah, you need both.
Go ahead.
No, I was just wondering if there's a way, like if you spray with clear coat or something, like workable fixative. I wonder if that would fix it.
Good luck inking over it. I think you'd have a hard time.
Workable fixative you can't ink on?
I don't think so. Like even sometimes it's hard to ink over blue lines because it's kind of like a primer that's on the board. So once the primer's there, it's hard to for the ink to adhere to the board itself.
Yeah. Well, not like ink. I mean like inkjet blue lines?
Yeah,
you mean like
the new stuff is better. I'm kind of basing this a lot on the older, you know, blue lines. The new stuff is a lot better. Yeah.
Right. All right, let me get to. Let's see. See, I'm doing all the work. You could be having your assistant reading through the chats and telling us what the people are saying.
What?
Who's the colorist for black and white?
Right now, we're kind of looking at a couple different people. But there's a guy named Holzblood, and he lives in Russia, of all places. And he's been doing some pages.
Does he have anything on Donald Trump?
Does he have what?
Does he have anything on Donald Trump?
I don't know. We should ask him.
Never.
Yeah, so he's kind of doing some stuff right now, but he's not professional. He's doing a great job, but we're doing a lot of micromanaging with him. So Taylor and I are thinking that it might become problematic once we start devoting more time to actually, you know, trying to bring the book together and stuff, because we're doing it in our spare time right now. So we're really not sure. I don't know if I should say this, but we've been talking to a very reputable colorist, a very good colorist, and he said he'll come in if need be. So yeah, so
no, you should.
Yeah, we got that tentatively scheduled. Yeah, it's still pretty early on.
Mike Soilo would like to know what's your favorite pieces that you've drawn.
Mike Soilo. Is that Mike or me?
Who's asking you?
Who's asking me? Favorite pieces. I really like. I did a cable, like diamond preview cover, and Marvel later made that into a retail poster. So I think that was probably my favorite mainstream, you know, Marvel DC piece of artwork that I've ever done. Of course.
Is that the one you made into a?
What's that?
Is that the one you made into a print and re-released?
Yeah, I digitally re-inked it and reissued it. I thought it came out pretty good. Had it recolored, reimagined for the 21st century. And
you have a web store?
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It's art, or it's artbytbear.com. So I have my prints and original artwork there. So
now, why haven't you just gone ahead and accepted the name of Artie Bear? You always ignore it whenever I call you Artie Bear.
I don't always ignore it. No, it's cool.
You do. You act like I never said.
Artie Bear. I just couldn't hear your ear right now.
Oh. Yeah, dude, you could make a little logo of a bear holding a quill in one hand and a brush in the other, and just make your logo Artie Bear.
Then I'll just be Cutie Bear.
Oh, you're a cutie anyways, Artie.
Oh, thank you. Well, as soon as you let your hair down, you drive me wild.
This is not that kind of a channel, so stop showing off your sexy legs.
Not yet. Oh, you can see those? Oh, you can see them earlier on. My gnarly toes. Oh, there they are. You son of a bitch.
Hey, my mom's here. Don't say that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mike, Jack wants you to verify what you're drawing.
Verify, as in hold it up. Can you see me now? Can you see me now?
Are you drawing a character from Fortnite, is what they're asking.
Yeah. I'm doing Ragnarok and his max armor from Fortnite. So don't know if you can see that. I haven't done his face yet. I was going to do his face with the quill, but the quill is making the ink bleed too much, so I've gone back in and I'm doing everything with this giant brush because it takes a lot of skill to be able to get these fine lines with this giant brush.
Wow.
This is the relationship Art and I have.
I like that you're comfortable enough with the show right now. It's all coming out. Yeah, Mike hurts my feelings and I cry. That's how the relationship works. Well, I too am using a big, thick, juicy brush. So what do you think of that?
Are you filling in blacks?
Oh my gosh. No, I'm doing inking too. I inked these hatches right. Where am I? Over here. Do you see this? This is all brush.
Let's see that brush. You know, brush size matters.
All right, I'm holding it up. I don't know if you can see it.
Is that a size 1? Is that a 00?
There it is. Oh. No. God. You're hurting me. No, it's a 2. It's a Winter Newton series 7, number 2.
Mike,
so a series
says you need to use some of that LONESTAR cache for a camera to replace the potato with you're recording with.
Ooh.
That was a roast.
That hurt.
Yeah, I don't understand why that. You guys are mean. You guys talk smack about art. This is my channel. You love me.
I'm hungry.
They do like the big brush, though. The chat is in favor of the brush.
Oh, thank you. My brush is pretty cool. My brush is bigger than Mike's.
Or Art. It's okay, Art. They love you anyways. It doesn't matter how small your brush is.
Oh my gosh. I'm going to put the brush away. That's it. You guys get no more brush. No more brush for me.
They say EVS has trained them.
They say what now?
Ethan Van Sciver has trained them for their responses. Why they're so sassy.
Sassafrassy.
We need to get you on Ethan's show when you get your you get your website a little more up and running.
Well, I'm all for that. That'll be fun.
Yeah. Do you know Ethan?
Yeah, we've done a couple shows together. And I don't think I know him as well as I know you, but I do know him. We've hung out a couple times.
Right on. Right on, right on. Yeah, Ethan's a good guy.
He's good people.
Good peoples. Good peoples. Yeah, we were, I don't know if you watched, did you watch the Comicsgate one with me and Ethan? Where we're just like shooting the crap while we're drawing? It was kind of like this, except you weren't.
But better, because Ethan was on it.
Well, I was on it, so how worse can it get?
No, I did not see that one. I will have to check.
Yeah, it's when I was doing the Comicsgate poster, and I was really just doing it for kicks and giggles, but Ethan was like, "Oh, I should make this a poster." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, I did see
brush.
that one. Oh, I thought you were talking about something more recent.
Oh, no. No, we haven't been on, like, just him and me for a while. Super Anthem says, "The brush maketh the man."
It can.
Girthy brushes. Rob Anderson
it's not the length, it's the girth.
That's right.
That's what I've heard.
Rob Anderson says, "Oh my God, Mike, your brush is so big."
Damn right.
SheRa looks awesome. The sword alone takes me back to my youth. Yes, I am inking. All of you should have done that for Rob. Like, done what? You got any good Rob Liefeld stories that'll make him sound good? I like Rob, so I don't know.
No, Rob's a great guy.
I know.
Yeah, I've known Rob before we both broke in the business. So I've known Rob for my whole professional career.
Cool. Then tell us his story. Tell us your story growing up with Rob.
With Rob. It was the whole Orange County thing. I lived in Orange County. He lived in Orange County. It was.
You guys ended up like and stuff all the time.
Yeah, I think it was just there wasn't the whole West Coast comic thing when I broke in. The only people that really did anything like this were the animators. So there wasn't really a lot of West Coast. I think Marv moved out here, and then Lin Wein moved out here. And then there were just like pockets of people like Rob and Jim Lee, Silvestri, myself. And I think that's why we all found each other. And actually, for a long time, they just called it the West Coast look because it was like all of us combined that kind of did, worked in that style. So yeah.
Which you cribbed from Barry Smith.
Yeah, it's all derivative, but isn't everything anyway? We all come from somewhere.
The chat wants to know if Rob hooked you up with some Levi's.
You know what? I actually, I'm not going to tell this story. No, he did not. He did not hook me up with any Levi's.
Did you also wear a denim jacket back then?
I did have a denim. I think everybody did, right?
Well, I had one in like 7th grade.
Oh, so I guess that's better somehow. So you're saying that I was more of an adult and I should have known better?
If that's how you want to take it.
Well, it is coming from you, Mike, so I think it's the only way I can take it. Because you hurt with your words.
It's all out of love. It's all out of love, brother. It's all out of love.
I hear you.
I hurt you because I love you.
I don't know how to answer
that. You say, I hurt you too, Mike.
I hurt you too.
So how's that SheRa coming? Let me see that thing.
Let's see. Is this? Let me see. I got the face. I think I'm just gonna do the face. Maybe finish the cape, and then do some more hair. And then I'm gonna bow out then because I got food here. Is that okay? Is everybody okay with that? I hope.
Yeah, that's fine. That is fine.
But I hope.
This is how far I am. So I've gotten much more detail in the same amount of time as you have. You see that, Art?
Oh, very cool. Yeah, you're moving. Well, you're fast anyway. I'm the slowpoke.
Well, okay. I am fast though. I don't know why. I don't know what the difference is.
You're focused. You're intense.
I just don't care as much.
Whoa. Is that true, Mike?
I don't know. No.
I don't think it's true.
I don't care. I think maybe, I don't know, how confident are you as an inker?
Fairly confident.
Yeah. Because people always ask, like, how do you not get, shaky lines? And I'm like, confidence, right? Because if you're like sitting there going slow because you're scared of the lines you're going to throw, then they end up shaky. But if you're like,
yeah,
if you're like, I trust that my line is going to go where I'm throwing it, and then you just slap it on the page. It's nice, clean, sharp, and 99 times out of 100, it goes exactly where I wanted it to. So
yeah, I always tell people, like, inking is more like a performance, like you're a performance artist, like you're on stage or you're a singer, because you're in the moment when you're working. There's not a lot of, if you have your skill set, there's not a lot of thinking involved, and there really shouldn't be. There should be, like you said, there's just a trust that you can do it, because the difference between penciling and inking is that inking is more of, you're in the moment. It's a performance. There's no mistakes. It's like whatever mistakes you make, that's part of the performance. You, like, if you're on stage, you're singing opera or whatever, and you drop a note or you miss a cue or whatever, that becomes part of the performance. So that's what stays there. And so when you ink, it's the same way. I mean, there's whiteout, there's some things you can do, but I think good inkers don't really use much whiteout, because they know that fixing stuff is going to take time. So they want to try to make sure that they do it the first time. And also, when you have to start reworking your art, the spontaneity and the movement dies. So you kind of don't want to do that. But penciling is a process. It's trial and error. It's draw, erase. And writing is the same thing too, where you write and then you rewrite and then you rewrite. So as far as comics is concerned, inking is it's a very unique thing. It's kind of only exists in comics, and it really is its own beast, because it is art, but it's not. The discipline is different. The mindset's different, and just the way you go about it is different. It is more of a performance, I think.
Yeah, I tend to think of it as more therapeutic. It's like something you can shut your brain off and I don't know, just let it flow. It's like you see the lines are already there for you. Somebody already did the thinking for you, or if you're doing it yourself, you've already done all the thinking stuff.
Right.
So you're just you're just letting this natural I don't know, conclusion. Yeah, it's like somebody says, hey, pencil me in, right? That means this could or could not happen, but we're planning for this thing to happen. And then you're like, oh, I'm going to put it in ink. You're like, that is a permanence that exists, in the general community and general concept in the real world, but we're putting it into a real practical application in our artwork. So, yeah, for me, it's like therapeutic. Don't have to think. I can just I can talk with my old friend Art for hours on end and never even, put that thought effort into how do I want to throw this line down. It's just, there's the line, that's where it needs to go. I'm going to throw it down, and then I'm done. So.
Have you inked other people before?
Oh, dude, I started my career as an inker.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So when
I was in junior college, and I wanted to do movie posters for a living.
Oh my!
And I heard that this was 1992, so it was the boom, and I heard that Ron Lim was making $30,000 a month. Of course, Ron was drawing 3 books a month. That guy, wow, what a workhorse! Nicest guy too. You know Ron?
Yeah, I shared that same story with him at San Diego last weekend.
Oh, that's funny.
Because I said he
yeah.
was the envy. He was the envy of all freelancers because he could get so much work done, and the only way you could really make money back then is volume. So you had to do a lot of work.
Right, but you know, John Byrne was doing 3 books a month too, and so I just kind of figured that was the speed at which people worked, and so maybe that's why I got fast. But I always, you know, so I was like, well, I've always drawn comics, so I took, you know, a brown paper bag, took it to WonderCon, shopped it around. Tom DeFalco, you know, asked me if I was tracing stuff, and I'm like, no. So he gave me his card and said, you know, keep working at it and send me preview stuff, you know, every couple of months, or send me samples every couple of months. So I started doing that. But before I left the con, I went. I had met Jeff Johnson, and I think Jeff was sitting next to Dan at the time. But I had met Jeff Johnson just previous to that at a Bay Area comic book club meeting, and I showed him my stuff. Guy. Yeah, but I showed him my stuff there, and then when I saw him at the show, he's like, "Have you had any luck?" I'm like, "No," and he's, you know, just people like it and gave me cards and stuff, but no, you know. I'm like, I should be walking out of here with a job. I didn't even know how it worked, right? That was my first comic book convention. And so Jeff told me to go talk to Chris Ulm at Malibu. And so I did. I went to Chris, and I showed him my brown paper bag full of artwork. And he really liked it. And he said he would get me work. And I was like elated. So he gave me his card. I called him up. Oh, no. I faxed him. Remember the old wizard competitions where you could, you know, send in a drawing of a character wearing the wizard robe and they'd print it?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, I did a drawing of Colossus like that, and I sent it in. I faxed it to Chris with a little word bubble. Says, "Hey, don't forget about me." And he calls me back 5 minutes later, and he's like, "Is this how you ink?" And I'm like, first, you know, I inked it with a rapidograph because I didn't have any idea what you were supposed to use to ink at the time.
Yeah.
And it was a fax. So I don't know what he saw in this piece of artwork that led him to believe that I could ink. But I was like, well, you said you were going to get me penciling work. And he's like, yeah, but we need an inker right now. And I'm like, it's work. I'll take it. So, yeah, he started having me ink. I started inking with rapidographs, and then I was like trying different like felt tip pens and stuff, and just experimenting. But he just kept me inking, and he was giving me, you know, like $40 a page, and I was jamming out like, oh, I don't know, 3-4 pages a day. And yeah, so he had me inking for a while, and then the next year I got work at Marvel and DC, and that was when Jim offered me the job, and then shortly afterwards reneged on it. Not that I'm bitter. I'm not bitter, because like I said, you know, all things work for good, and I wouldn't be in the exact same place I am, and I wouldn't want to ever risk anything of what I have now for success in the past, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that was me. And then Jim had me inking too, or maybe not Jim, but Jim's editors. And I was inking for Freak Force for Eric. And what else? I mean, I did a lot of ink. I took inking jobs. I took penciling jobs. And then I made one mistake when I listened to Jim's advice on, he's like, you need to decide what you want to be, a penciler or an inker, and then just do that. And so I quit Freak Force like an idiot because I was making $250 a page, and I was doing 3 pages a day. And I quit because Jim said, focus on penciling. And I'm like, but, and then he kept hiring me as an inker anyways, so.
Gosh, it's horrible.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how I came up. There were some similarities to when you started telling your story. I'm like,
yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of similarities. I just think that I just can't believe that I took a trip all the way to New York City. Like, I'd never been out of California, you know, and all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, I'm going to show up at Marvel and show my portfolio. What a knucklehead.
yeah, boy.
It worked, though, I guess so.
It did work. I'm sure. So you were a proud young buck with a portfolio?
Yeah, and everybody on the East Coast that I met at the time, and I'm still friends with most of those people. Oh, shoot. Did my camera shut off?
It's just showing.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe the battery went out.
I think it got touched.
Oh, the screen got touched?
Do you not have it plugged in?
Well, I guess it's still working. Hold on. Keep talking, Mike, so it doesn't go to me.
All right. Well, it just shows your face thing.
Yeah, it's low battery. I think I'm going to bow out since my battery is dying. I only have 10% remaining. So,
all right.
Thank you so much.
This was all kind of fun. Yeah, what? And let's do it again. And yeah, again, everyone, I put Art's page in the description. So if you could go there, sub to him so you can hear more of his riveting tales of woe. And Art, thanks for coming on the show. We will see you soon.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. And I'll finish this piece and I'll post it up for everybody to see.
Lorena, what's your Twitter handle?
It's just RT-Bear.
Okay. So it's just RT-Bear at. All right, guys. All right. As Art bows out, I'm gonna bow out too. I got a couple of things to do. I'm gonna finish this up, scan it in, and I will be posting this on my various social medias as well. So thanks everyone for being here. Art, just hold on a second. I'm gonna stay on with you, and then
okay.
Good night, Gracie.
Thanks, everyone.